Alright, think we're good to go. Welcome, folks. Good evening to all tuning in tonight. Just making sure we are all set, and we are all set. Welcome. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another ARC F1 race. We are here with the next feature in the 2024 ARC F1 Realistic season. We'll be racing out of Suzuka tonight, a favorite among drivers and fans alike. Great track to be at for tonight. First Grand Prix held here in 1987, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. I was 10 years away from existing, however. It's a track we know and love regardless, I'm sure. Contract renewed to be featured on the Formula One calendar until at least 2029, thankfully. This is a track that everybody loves to come to and everybody loves to watch a good race at. So, we're hoping for one tonight, certainly. Just me in the booth tonight. It's your friend Alex. Thanks to all you guys trickling in. Getting it going with some qualifying at the moment. A few new faces on the grid tonight. Apologies, but I will not be able to get their names in time. It'll be Mr. Brightside driving the Haas as well as Proxy in the AlphaTauri that we will be hoping for a good result from tonight. Maybe their first ARC points. Of course, highlighting last week's performance, though, it was Mikey de Jong coming away with a close one in Bahrain. Rounding out the podium with him was Jackson Altman and Boriyoshi, respectively, and it should be a tight fight between these two, or three, I should say. Mikey de Jong did kind of run away with it a bit at the end, and the tight fight was more between Jackson Altman and Boriyoshi. However, all three of them already showing themselves to be pretty strong drivers early on in the season. Should be looking to continue that streak of high point scoring tonight, I'm sure. It was Mikey de Jong on pole position last week out. He'll be looking to replicate that result. So here we are underway at Suzuka. 18 corners here. It's fast, it's flowing, and it is a pure driver's track through and through. Almost a perfectly designed track by all measures, I would say personally. So much fun to drive this track and, great viewing experience from basically anywhere that you choose to be around it. Never been myself in person, however. Don't really need to catch all the action tonight, do we, folks? So, first few on some hot laps right now. It is Andrew Davis laying down the benchmark time of 1:28.9. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer a bit off with the 1:29.2. He'll be looking to improve from there. It is the Astons, the first ones on the board. Next across the line will be newcomer Mr. Brightside with the 1:28.90 to Andrew Davis's 9.7. Quickly taken over by Mikey de Jong, though, with the 1:28.2. I believe we'll see pole position time around maybe a 1:27.4, 1:27.5, just about. Plenty of room for improvement here for these first few drivers putting up laps, and of course the rest of the grid playing a bit of catch-up at this point. Jackson Altman, surprisingly, with the 1:32, must have ran into a bit of trouble on his first hot lap. Let's see, looks like it'll be Deshaun Davidson next across the line for the AlphaTauri team with the 1:35. Unfortunate for him, that's a bit of a wasted lap. I'm sure he must have ran into some issue along the way. Boriyoshi, right up the board he goes on his first lap out, but it is Jamie Knock coming in, swooping in a bit in the Alpine with the 1:28.0, about 2/10 faster than Mikey de Jong, maybe a tenth and a half or so. And wow, it looks like all drivers managed to put in a lap at least on their first time out. There are no invalidations thus far. Rather a rare occurrence in an ARC F1 race, if I do say so myself. So, back in, a few of these drivers will go after their first hot lap. Jamie Knock, though, already with the time to beat here, 128.097. Making space there looks to be the Red Bull of Matt Stotts, I believe. Got his tires a bit dusty, but will not matter as he'll be ducking in for a fresh set anyways. Currently sitting P8 with the 129.5. And the times are all rather bunched up, only about, what is it? A second and a half separating P1 to just about P9? It's maybe not as bunched up as one may think. Nonetheless, still impressive to see all drivers with a time on the board thus far. Newcomer Proxy coming across with the 131.3, good for 11th place for the moment. And yeah, benchmark has certainly been set here with Jamie Knox's time. I'm sure it will be blasted through by a lot of these other top runners as well as himself. Maybe on his next lap out. Drivers still getting their feet under them a bit here. Mikey DeYoung will be starting his second hot lap now, looking to improve off that 128.2. Good for P2 at the moment. Should be noted, love when this happens, but Mikey DeYoung currently P2, Boriyoshi sitting P3, separated by 2/1000ths of a second as Mikey DeYoung goes purple through Sector 1. This should be a pretty good lap, a marked improvement from his first time. Maybe coming up on some traffic here in Sector 2, though. Not sure what's going on with the drivers in front of him. Believe that Red Bull is of Matthew Stotts, and oh, looks like he's also on his own hot lap, so shouldn't be too much trouble for Mikey DeYoung, actually. Through Sector 2 he goes, and purple once again. Has a chance here to really crush. Really crush his original time as he crosses the final, or over the final line, and it is good for P1 for the moment. First driver into the 127s with the 127.6, nearly half a second faster than the time of Jamie Knock. Oh, and in the interim, as Boryoshi has started his next hot lap, it's Jackson Altman shooting up into P2, right in front of teammate Jamie Knock, their next driver into the 127s with the 127.8. Still about a tenth and a half back from Mikey DeYoung, but plenty of time, of course, to improve upon that. Boryoshi now takes the purple Sector 1 as he weaves his way through 2 now. Oh, and a bit of trouble there with the Haas, some traffic. May have been an AlphaTauri, actually, excuse me. And it's an early retirement for the Red Bull of AJ Knickel, unfortunately. Currently sitting P6, may have run into some trouble, maybe a mechanical failure. Not too sure what's going on there with the Red Bull. But he'll have to sit upon that time of 128.9 and hope for the best from that P6 position. I do expect him to drop at least a few places by session's end, though. Coming down to about 5 minutes remaining, time enough for maybe 2 hot laps here for drivers who have not yet gone out. That would be the Astons, as well as the Haas of Max, and the other Red Bull of Matthew Stotts. Julius Duku in the Williams also making his way out. Another weekend on track, and another weekend that I'm sure Mikey DeYoung feels rather confident with his time at the moment. 127.69. Good for pole for now, but I mean a tenth and a half of a gap from him to Jackson Altman, and it may be a bit insurmountable here. Oh, and a big moment there for the Williams of Julius Duco, unfortunately. Has a bit of a spin out onto the dirt. Manages to get it back around, but back onto the dirt. Tires are a bit kaput, and he'll have to gingerly make his way back in. Lots of debris kicked up in that little section as well. And next to start their hot lap seems to be Andrew Davis in the Aston. Currently P7 with the 128.9. I could see him shooting for maybe P4 or P5 on this lap. It will be tight between him and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, teammate, however. Both pretty solid drivers, as it's Mikey DeYoung. Ooh, apologies, who was it? I think it was Matt Stotts, actually, shooting his way up into P5. Bumping teammate AJ Knickel down 1 position to P7 for the time being. That early retirement may cost him a few more positions here, unfortunately. And as the clock winds down here, Andrew Davis does cross the line with a slight improvement. Good for P7 with the 128.7. A few more retirements. Drivers sitting upon their times. That is Matthew Stotts in P5 with the 128.5, as well as our current provisional pole sitter, Mikey DeYoung with the 127.6. Only 3 drivers thus far into the 127s. Clock has ticked down to under a minute remaining, so this is it. This is crunch time. And really, it's game on here for Jackson Altman of the Alpine, as well as Borioshi in the Ferrari. They will make it over the line in time to start one more lap, and they'll be looking to take a swing at Mikey DeYoung if possible, currently sitting in pole position. Lots of time to be made up here, though. Jackson Altman about 1/10.5, Borioshi 2.5. Jamie Knock with a marked improvement on his previous time, now sitting P2 with the 127.7. Only about 1/100th of a second back from Mikey DeYoung, and he has very quickly, very noticeably injected himself into this top 3 battle that I was kind of expecting. This may be a 4-way battle here for the win, if Mikey DeYoung does not manage to pull away with it soon enough. Through the final section comes Jackson Altman now, and it looks like he's invalidated his lap. He'll be coming across the line and just absolutely mashing it. Knowing the situation, Borioshi doing much the same. Believe kind of understood the moment there. Wasn't going to have what it took to unseat Mikey DeYoung or really improve on his time and gain any positions at all. Unfortunately, so it looks like the grid here is set, folks. It will be Mikey DeYoung on pole position once again. Strong start to the season already for that McLaren driver. As can be expected, of course, the previous season's champion in the 2023 ARC F1 season, already coming out swinging here in 2024. Jamie Knock, though, bit of a surprise contender in this one, as he will be lining up alongside Mikey DeYoung in P2. Had a great lap there at the end of qualifying. Jackson Altman and Borioshi will occupy row 2 of the start. Of course, big battles for both of those drivers last weekend out, and I'm sure we will see much the same this weekend. Row 3 will be occupied by Matthew Stotts, with newcomer Mr. Brightside qualifying P6. Andrew Davis, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, teammates at the Aston, will be trying to duke it out and get the best of one another on row 4. P9 and P10 go to AJ Knickel and Max in the Haas, respectively. P11 will be secured by Julius Duku, looking to have a crack at the points this season. Proxy and Deshaun Davidson will round it out in the Alpha Tauris, P12 and P13, respectively. Well, we are set to go here in Suzuka. And of course, on such a technical track, we should realistically expect gaps to start forming and trains and whatnot to start aligning pretty early in this race. Of course, those top 4 seem to be all running just about the same pace. Should be a good dogfight for the win. At least we can hope. Further down the grid, plenty more consistent drivers and whatnot that'll be looking to maintain good starts or make the jump on other drivers who may not have as good of starts. Plenty of points to be earned in this race, of course. Small grid tonight, so every position certainly counts. Let's take a quick look now at the tire strategy. Our front row runners seem to have opted for the long strategy for their first stint, both running the hard compound tires. Jackson Altman may be looking to make a splash early on as he'll opt for the soft compound tires, with Boryoshi and Matthew Stott's P4 and P5 off the start, both opting for the medium compound, and then it's a bit of a mix the rest of the way down. Mr. Brightside on the softs, Andrew Davis and Jonathan Jurgensmeyer both for the Aston team opting for the mediums, AJ Knickel going for the softs after a bit of a disappointing qualifying. Max and the Haas will be on the mediums, and Blurry Julio, Julius Duku, opting for the hard compound tires, looking to make the long run there from the back. And then it'll be medium and soft compound respectively for Proxy and Deshaun Davidson. So into their spots they will shuffle now, lining up here along the sponsored start-finish line this year. We want to thank DIVEBOMB Motorsport, of course, ARC's premier partner, for taking a shot on us and, of course, sponsoring this race. They will be lining up on the DIVEBOMB start-finish at the moment, waiting, of course, for the lights before we get going. And it's lights out and away we go from here in Suzuka. Good getaway here from Jackson Altman. Jamie Knock maybe a bit slower on it. Mikey DeYoung as well, about the same getaway as Jamie Knock. Ooh, contact there between teammates of the Alpines, and they both send each other a bit wide. And that is P6 that Jackson Altman will be having to fight back from here at the start. Mikey DeYoung loving that little situation, as it's given him already about a half a second lead up front. Jamie Knock really getting the short end of that stick. About a second back from the lead at the moment, half a second from the P2 of Boryoshi, who has just cruised his way up onto the podium already in the matter of a first few corners alone. He will be chasing down Mikey DeYoung from here. Of course, running the slightly softer compound tires, opting for the mediums, is the Ferrari. And it's already a VSC. Oh, and it looks like it's been calamity for, I'm not sure exactly who. It may have been the AlphaTauri there of Proxy, unfortunately. Bit more movement here along the grid. The VSC is deployed. Riders will have to hold station for the moment as things get a bit cleared up. Not sure exactly what the point of trouble was there. We were kind of a bit laser focused on that front of the grid battle off the starting line. Did not manage to catch what may have happened, but... Oh, and it looks like it was AJ Knickel. Ran into some early trouble and another early exit for him in the Red Bull. Hopes and dreams dashed. Of course, this being a realistic season, I'm sure he was expecting a good result here in that strong Red Bull. But it will be for naught tonight, unfortunately. So back underway we go. The VSC has been called off, and for the moment it is still about half a second of a gap between Boryoshi and Mikey de Jong there. Jamie Knox seems to be having himself a bit of trouble as he runs into the back of the Aston of Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, almost sends him careening into the wall, now has to deal with the Red Bull of Matthew Stotts, taking a peek up the inside, but he does hold the outside strongly enough, gets a bit of a better exit even than Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, manages to hold on to P5 for the time being, of course having started P2 running into some early trouble after contact with teammate Jackson Altman of all people. Tight battle here for P5 for the time being, of course. Bit more movement up and down the grid as it looks like Proxy has made his way around Max. The Alpha getting the best of the Haas for the final points paying position. And already a 1 second gap built out by Mikey de Jong over the P2 of Boryoshi. Should be noted, of course, that Boryoshi opted for the medium compound tires. Mikey de Jong is kind of running away with this thing, and he's on the hards. But very quietly, up onto the podium has snuck Mr. Brightside, newcomer, I believe, to the ARC F1 series. In the Haas, no less. I will reiterate, this is a realistic setting season, so if he can manage to maintain his pace and his current position, this will be a really cracking race for him. Of course, only 3 laps in and plenty of fireworks already, though. Should expect more as time goes on, if any of the first 3 laps were any indication. Being crept up on a bit by the Alpine of Jackson Altman, though, who's looking to fight his way back onto the podium as well after a great race last weekend. Right up to the rear of that Haas he goes, looking to make the swing around the outside. Has a bit of a run on him. Gets side by side, but backs out a bit. May not have been wanting to take the issue to him too soon, and of course end up in a similar position as that Red Bull, unfortunately. Goes through the chicane much more cleanly, though. Sweeps around the outside through the final corner and over the line. He will be up into P3. And it's game on from here. Jamie Knox looking to make up as much as he can. Already almost 4 seconds behind the P4 position of Mr. Brightside. Of course, him having started in a podium position as well. I believe he was P3 off the start. No, I'm sorry, he was P2. Jamie Knox, with the cracking lap right at the end of qualifying, snuck his way up into P2 onto the front row alongside Mikey de Jong, but could not hold it for very long as the 2 Alpines ran into each other within about a corner or 2 of the race start. Gap from de Jong to Boryoshi now worked out to about 1.5 seconds, and it only seems to be growing from here. Gaps already forming all up and down the grid, it seems. Only 3 drivers within 1 second of the car ahead for the time being. Make that 2. And now make that 1. However, Jackson Altman already showing some great pace. Of course, starting on those soft compound tires, he will be taking a short first stint. But after dropping a few positions after contact with his teammate, I mean, it's really dashed any hopes of this first stint really meaning much for him, unfortunately. He's within 1 second of Boryoshi in the Ferrari, next car ahead. However, I'm sure he would have been hoping to be fighting with Mikey de Jong, who's on the hard compound tires by this point. 5 laps in, we find ourselves. Oh, and it seems Calamity has struck the Haas of Mr. Brightside, unfortunately, tumbling his way down the pecking order. He finds himself in P7 for the moment. Seems he must have had a bit of an off. His car is awful squirrely underneath him now, maybe running on some dirty tires. And it's a long way up for this Haas, however, does still find himself in the points, looking to hold on to any position he can, I'm sure. P7 it is for the time being, plenty of room behind him, about 3 seconds back to the next car of Julius Dooku in the Williams. So, only looking forward for the Haas from here. Boryoshi, meanwhile, has managed to at least take somewhat of a chunk out of the gap that Mikey de Jong managed to pull off the start. Down to about 1.2 seconds throughout this lap, 0.3 closer than he was on the last. Jackson Altman as well seems to be settling into this race to some extent, as his gap to Boryoshi ahead was about 0.8 for most of the first few laps. Now finds himself with just about the same gap to Boryoshi as Boryoshi does to Mikey de Jong, nearly a second and a half. Be interesting to see what the call is here for this Alpine in terms of tire strategy, as he goes a bit wide there through Spoon. Finds his way back onto the track, but has lost a few tenths just in that corner alone to Boryoshi. But it'll be an interesting call for him on when he chooses to come in, how long he wants to push these soft compound tires, and he should have at least a few more laps left in them, of course. But the way that things have gone already, I mean, he may be wanting to consider maybe a plan B or plan C even from here, as plan A to just jump out and get as close to Mikey de Jong as possible has not worked out, of course, after the early contact with teammate Jamie Knock. Now nearly 6 seconds of a gap between those two. And of course, almost on cue. Could be commentator's curse, you never know, but the gap between Boryoshi and Mikey de Jong, having been about 1.2 seconds for the last 2 laps, is now nearly 2 seconds. Boryoshi may be dropping back a bit, or Mikey de Jong may be turning it on a bit. In a golden position here is that McLaren. Running those hard compound tires, he'll be able to make them last so much longer than all these drivers chasing him, namely Boryoshi and Jackson Altman, of course, on the soft compound. So it'll be interesting strategy calls from here on out after the first VSC. A few of these drivers may be banking on more trouble later down the line to maybe save a few of their races and whatnot after really pushing this first stint. Tight battle here for P9 as Max looks to make the swing around the outside of Proxy, and he does. Good for P9 for the time being. It's Julius Dooku, though, making the move on Andrew Davis for P5. That Williams seems to have some pace today, as Andrew dips 2 tires into the grass and ends up a bit sideways almost because of it. Big correction he had to make there on some snap oversteer. Oh, and another one. Car really fighting with him at this stage. takes a peek up the inside. Andrew Davis of that Williams will have the outside line for this corner. Does he have enough? They are side by side, nearly wheel to wheel. Oh, and some slight contact, only a bit of a wheel touch. Not enough to really unsettle either car throughout the corner. However, it is Julius Duku backing out, relinquishing that P5 position to Andrew Davis for the time being. Maybe looking to make another move on him, though. Has a peek up the inside, if only for a second.